Fully leaning into radiant damage in combination with smite procs is one of the most satisfying ways to steamroll your enemies without even having to look at your health bar in Lords of the Fallen. If you want to play as another unkillable, HP leeching, spear wielding maniac with insane damage potential that favours a highly aggressive melee-focused playstyle with room for additional use of righteous holy fury that obliterates enemies, still while fulfilling that smiting paladin aesthetic, then this is the build for you. Fate Shifter here, and thank you for checking out my Judge Clerics Disciple build. In today's video, we're breaking down what is, in my opinion, one of the best dual-wield melee builds that has a specialism in sustaining health during fight. We'll be going over the stats, weapons, armor, rings, pendants, and rune choices that make this build an immortal life-leeching machine with impressive damage. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Quick disclaimer here, folks. Some of the footage I've used in this video is taken pre-patch 326, which contained what the devs have called a fix for how Hallowed Triptych was interacting with holy damage. Knockout potential you see in some of these clips is no longer there, but the life leech is. In the early game, the main stats to focus on in this build are Radiance for damage scaling and Vitality for survivability. As this build focuses on Radiance and utilising the Judge Cleric Spear, you are safe to spend your points in Radiance, as the requirements to wield this weapon are only 8 in Agility and 16 in Radiance. Initially, you'll require around 20 points in Endurance to have ample stamina to utilise in the early to mid game. My advice here would be to get Radiance to around 50 and then fill the rest in any order of your choosing. The Orion Preacher and the Orion Preacher Hammer are your best choice of starting class and weapon due to the 18 points of Radiance the class starts with and the fact that the weapon is an absolute beast in the early to mid game. For the primary weapon, I am dual wielding the Judge Cleric Spears. In my opinion, this is the best option for this build due to a range of reasons. Highly competitive damage output, superb style points, especially when imbued with Radiant weapon, and an absolutely devastating moveset when dual wielded. Fully upgraded, these spears come with an S tier Radiance scaling, highly appetizing attack power combined with decent physical damage and savage holy damage. However, one of the most appealing characteristics is that on top of all this, they have 100 smite damage. Combining this with Radiant weapon gives this spear a monstrous smite build-up. These spears lend themselves perfectly to rapidly proccing smite. This allows us to create a finely balanced build that pumps damage, procs smite very often, and, perhaps most importantly, maintains a steady flow of life leech. More on how to achieve that later. It also goes without saying that these spears look fantastic when imbued with Radiant weapon and really complement the Holy Paladin kind of look. This spear can be acquired as soon as you collect the Judge Cleric's Remembrance. You will therefore need 2 playthroughs in order to fully build this character. For those of you who are starting this character from scratch, I would recommend using the Hush Saint's Halberd as your second weapon choice until you have your second spear. You could actually choose to play with Pieter's Sword or any other kind of smite proccing weapon if you would like to lean into the holy aesthetic as soon as possible. The 3 rune slots in this weapon make a huge difference to the build. 3 Sartus runes to further improve holy damage, resulting in an overall net damage increase, is the option I have chosen. You could also throw in a combination of Sartus and Nartan runes together to try and leech some life on kill back if you're leaning into a more casting-centric playstyle. Other options include a Rook rune for further posture damage, Tumult for HP gain on kill, Sabino for life on hit, or another Oromon rune for more scaling. It's entirely your own choice, but I focus on getting as much damage out as possible. We cover all things ARPG and FPS on this channel, so if you enjoy games like Lords of the Fallen, consider subscribing to the channel. The community would love to have you. Drop a like if you enjoy the video and sound off in the comments below with any thoughts and questions. The best in-slot choice for Radiance catalysts is the Exacta Scripture, which you can acquire from completing Exacta Dunmire's questline. At plus 10, this provides us with exceptional spell power, sitting at almost 700, and S-tier Radiant scaling, and if that wasn't already enough, 5 spell slots. A simply sublime choice here. Other options until this point are Abyss Chalice, Radiant Purifier, Wilmark's Catalyst, and Agony's Light. Agony's Light is really easy to acquire at the start of the game and can be utilised all the way through the game effectively. This is dropped by the spiky-headed mobs that we come across in Pilgrim's Perch, and my advice would be to farm one of these, particularly the one that spawns outside the Bellroom waypoint, and this will also net you some excellent vigor gains along with your catalyst. Ring and pendant choices are very straightforward. Post Hallowed Triptych nerf, the most favourable pendant of choice here is the Empyrean pendant. This means we do even more holy damage, and the centre of this build is holy damage, which makes this a no-brainer. The ring choices are also very straightforward. A double Bramble ring setup is optimal for our survivability. Bramble rewards life on hit for any smite procs that hit an enemy, and wearing 2 of these makes the effect stack, offering us absolutely insane survivability. It is important to note that sometimes Smite procs without the animation and does still leech life. That is something to be aware of whilst you're playing this build. As this will require 2 playthroughs or a friendly companion to drop you one to get both, a potential second ring choice is the Orien Sorcerer's Ring for additional holy damage. The Bramble Rings can be found in the Tower of Pendants, and the Orien Sorcerer Ring can be acquired from Stomond when you come across him in the Abbey of the Hallowed Sisters. The first choice of spell is Aureus' Judgment, and can be acquired from Stomond when you encounter him in the Abbey of the Hallowed Sisters, along with the Orien Sorcerer's Ring. This spell summons a thundercloud above its target and tracks it as it moves, striking it intermittently with bolts of holy devastation. This is also highly effective at clearing out rooms of trash mobs, an absolute mainstay in this build. The second spell is Piercing Light. This is our standard ranged attack that is exceptional at dealing with other ranged mobs. Our third spell choice is Radiant Weapon. This imbues our weapon with even more radiant damage and synergizes really well with the previously mentioned aspects of the build. I've run some brief tests, and using Lacerate to increase bleed damage is also a viable choice here when enemies are resistant to holy damage, but I think the difference isn't too staggering. Our fourth spell is Invigorating Aura. This provides us and our allies with a ticking heal over time that is quite frankly absolutely broken. This is what makes us an unkillable, radiant entity that you will rarely need to use your heal to keep up. Our fifth spell slot is Flexible. You can go for further offensive capabilities in the form of Lucent Beam, which is a little overkill in my opinion, but incredibly fun to use. You could also swap this for Aureus' Judgment, but I do feel like Aureus' Judgment is better due to its cast and forget nature. I feel a better choice here would be a defensive choice such as Sanctify, a holy sigil that is placed on the ground which heals us and the status effects placed upon us. When you drop this for a big fight, you can stand in this and charge up your attacks whilst freely getting whacked in the face with the confidence you'll likely emerge with full health. In combination with the Eye of Loash as a main socket in our lamp, this gives us further ability to face tank even the hardest hits without even having our poise broken. Another choice is the Aura of Tenacity. This means we take a flat damage reduction on all damage received and can use it in tandem with Invigorating Aura. That's if you're happy with the occasional consuming of mana stones to keep your mana topped off. If you're interested in the way this character looks, I'm using the Ravager Helm, which can be purchased from Exacta Dunmire for 2,500 vigor. You would need to give him Ravager Gregory's Rosary to expand his inventory and purchase this item from him. This is coloured with the exclusive golden tinct. In addition to this, I'm using the Judge Clerics armor set. That's including the gauntlets, the chest, and the legs, and you get this from submitting the remembrance that you get from killing Judge Cleric. The mechanics of this build are very simple. Buff up with Radiant Weapon, Invigorating Aura, and/or Aura of Tenacity. Select your target and throw yourself in like a whirling dervish, watching Smite procs trigger repeatedly, consistently refilling your HP bar. You will either wipe enemies out with pure damage or break their posture and finish them off with a glorious Grievous Strike. You can also further up the ante with this build by casting a few bolts of Piercing Light and the infamous Aureus' Judgment to further support your stagger breaking potential and increase damage. You will need to consume mana stones to keep your mana topped off with this approach. It also makes sense to utilise unripened grapes. This gives ourselves stamina regeneration and allows us to sustain our damage output for longer. This build performs best when it's played as aggressively as possible. You can take this approach knowing you're immortal and a righteous force to be reckoned with, just like a holy paladin should be. So there we have it, folks. An immortal Judge Cleric's disciple to skewer and smite your enemies with righteous holy fury. This channel is continuing to grow steadily, and I'm absolutely loving making content for you. I hugely appreciate all the ongoing support, discussion, and thoughtful insights that you've been providing in the comments. It really is so beneficial to the development of this interdimensional community. Thank you for all the likes, subscribes, and comments. They're making all the difference. With that in mind, if you want to see more content of this nature, please do smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to support. So, until next time, enjoy the build, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one, guys.